we got the fish caught, and then we want to smoke it. Now there's several different brines. I'm going to show you the old original brines, what your great-grandfather used to use. This was the old standard. Everybody used rock salt. You could go to the local feed store and buy a sack of rock salt for $1. So they would take a cup of rock salt. You have to put it in a crock or a plastic container. You can't put it in something metal. To that, they would add your grandmother would have spent 20 minutes packing the brown sugar, but a cup and a half of brown sugar. So 1 cup of rock salt, a cup and a half of brown sugar, and 2 quarts of cold water. Now, having done that, you can stir this all you want. The rock salt will not completely dissolve. Water will only take on so much salt. But you can stir it around there and get it to dissolve, and then you're going to put your fish in there. Now that only came up to here. With this amount of fish we have here, we'd have to double that. You can just double it. You could put 2 cups of rock salt, 3 cups of brown sugar, 4 quarts of water. It'll bring it up to here. As you put the fish in, it's coming up. So if you use a cylinder type device to hold your fish in, you use less brine. If you had something that was flat like this, you'd have to triple that or quadruple. It doesn't matter as long as the proportions are the same. 1 cup of rock salt, cup and a half of brown sugar, 2 quarts of water. You could do that 4 times. This is the old standard, and this really works good for fresh fish. If I had fish in the freezer and I wanted to do this, I wouldn't use this method. Now the reason I say that is fish will freeze and it'll start tearing down the fibers, and as it breaks down the fibers, it'll take on water. So I'm using a wet solution. When you take it out of there and you start the smoking process, a lot of times it'll be mushy. It won't be nice and firm, so we don't like that. So this is a good one to use on fresh fish. Although, one thing you want to remember when you take the fish out of here, rinse them thoroughly in fresh water to get any salty deposits off of them. So 1 cup of rock salt, cup and a half brown sugar, 2 quarts of water. That's a good brine. Now I'm going to show you my favorite one. Alright, we did the liquid brine. Now we're going to do a dry solution. This is my favorite because it never turns out salty. You can use frozen fish, fresh fish, you can use any of it. So I'm going to take a cup of salt. I'm going to actually have a little less than a cup, about 7/8 or 3/4 of a cup of plain salt. It has to be plain salt. Then I'm going to take some brown sugar. I'm going to take 4 cups, but I'm going to put 2 cups in there. These are heaping cups. I'm not going to take the time to pack it. Then I'm going to put half of my salt in on top of it, like so. Stir it around a little bit. And I'm going to put 2 more brown sugar in. So 4 heaping cups of brown sugar and 1 cup of plain non-iodized salt. So 4 to 1. We put this in here. We're going to mix this all up together. Now we're going to spread this on our fish. Now you need to have a container. Can't be a metal container. It needs to be plastic, a crock, or glass. Any one of those will work. So I've got that all mixed up good. And I like these containers. You get these at the Dollar Tree. They're $1 and they stack up really nifty. So we'll get one of these and we'll set it down here. We'll start putting our fish in there. I'm just going to start aligning it right in the bottom of my container like so. Now I've got 1 row. You can see how I've got my fish in there. Then I'm going to take a generous portion of this dry mixture and I'm going to put it on my fish like so. And if the pieces aren't too big, you got room, I'm going to just put another layer right up on top of that. I'm just going to keep layering it in there. But what you want to do is not put too much in there. You need a little bit of room to move them around. So I've got those pieces in there, like so. Then I'm going to take, and I like to do this out on the porch unless it's 100-degree weather. If you put ice in your ice chest or frozen water jugs in your ice chest, it'll bring the temperature down to about 45 to 47 degrees, and that's the perfect temperature to get this all to work. So that works. If you put it in the refrigerator, it takes up a lot of space. So I'm going to put that lid on it. Now I'm going to show you that one more time here so you can see. See how all the powder, everything's in there. Now within an hour to 2 hours, that all is going to change. That is going to look like this. Now can you see how that's all liquid now? What has happened is the brown sugar and the salt have drawn the moisture out of the fish. This is the water that was in the fish. Now when I pick up a piece of this fish, it's going to be stiff, it's firm. That's ready to go in the smoker. If I pick up a piece of this fish, what is it? It's limp. So you can tell the difference. So I know this one isn't cured. Now, you put this in the refrigerator and you leave it in there for 4 or 5 hours. It'll juice up like this. And then I like to leave it in there for at least 14 hours overnight. But in the meantime, I'm going to take and rotate my pieces. If you don't rotate them, what happens is you'll get two pieces that stick together like this. You can't get the salt cured to them. So you need to move them. They all need to look like so. And you can tell if you have a piece that isn't cured because it'll be a different color. And these are all looking good in here. And if it feels a little bit limp, just move it around, get it down further down into the solution. Now you can leave this in here for 14 hours or you can leave it in there for 4 or 5 days. It depends on how much time you got and when you can start your smoking. So I leave it in there at least overnight, 12, 14 hours, then take it out. When you take the pieces out, you squeeze them off like this, and you put them on your rack and dry them, and then you start the smoking process. Alright, now we've shown you 2 methods to use for brining your fish. The one with the liquid, and I only suggest using that whenever you're doing it with fresh fish. Frozen fish seems to take on too much water. Now we've had it in there overnight, 12 to 14 hours. You can leave it longer. Whenever you take it out, put it on your rack, you have to rinse it with cold water. And the reason for that is sometimes you'll have little deposits of salt there. So rinse it under the faucet really good with cold water to rinse all that off. Now we're going to put it on our rack, in our Big Chief smoker. And if you read any instructions, they'll tell you to spray it with PAM or with whatever, and it won't stick. It'll stick, I guarantee it. I like to buy these little nylon things like this. They fit right on there. They sell them, and it won't stick to it. You take it out, put it in the dishwasher, and you wash it. So if I was doing this, taking it out of the brine, I'd take my piece out, I'd put it underneath the faucet, I'd rinse it really good, and I'd put it on my rack. Now that's the way I'll do it. Now if I was doing it the other method that we showed you with the 4 cups of brown sugar, 1 cup of salt, you take it out and you just squeeze it off with your hands, just like this, not rinsing it, and you lay that on your rack. Okay, so now we get all of our pieces laid on our rack, and we're going to put it on the rack like so. And I usually do this in the house on the draining board. You can do it outside, but the flies will drive you nuts. And you blow it with a fan. Now the reason I'm doing that is it'll form a skin on the outside. You can feel this. This is dry. It's about ready to go in the smoker. So you blow it with a fan, forms that skin. Then as you start the smoking process, it won't break open and let the oil out. It'll always be nice and moist. So everything's going to stay in there as long as you don't get too much heat. And that's the advantage of using a constant heat temperature type thing like the Big Chief. It'll only go up to about 165 degrees. So, and if you use another kind of a smoker, one like a propane smoker, you get your heat too high, it breaks it open, you lose your oil. So we're going to blow it with a fan, and that usually takes 2 or 3 hours. It won't spoil. Everybody always asks me, does it spoil? No, it won't spoil because you've already cured it. So we blow it with a fan and you feel it and it's dry to the touch. Now it's ready for the smoker. So I'm going to use a top load Big Chief smoker. Now I know from my past experience, this is my favorite one because I can take the rack out and I can blow it like so. But for a lot of people that aren't as husky or as healthy or as strong as some other people, the front load smoker works a lot better because you don't have to do all that lifting. So you can just pull out your racks, put your fish on it, put your fan in front of it, blow it. You don't have to handle it as much. But we're going to use the top one. So I've got all my fish dried, blown with the fan. So this weighs about 45 pounds, so see it gets heavy. Then I'm going to put it into my smoker. Now, I'm looking at the smoker here, and I'm thinking before I do that, I want to show you one little thing. The most common thing that goes wrong with smokers is people will set it on the deck. I have this one sitting on the deck. The heating element in this is right here in the bottom. That's the hottest spot. Put it on a couple of pumice stone blocks or a couple of bricks, get it up off the deck, you'll never have any trouble with it. Get it up off of the cedar, whatever you happen to have for a deck. Then I'm going to put my fish. Now you see how heavy this is, even I'm having trouble lifting it down in there because it's so heavy. Now if you had the wife doing that, this front load would work much easier. So after I get it in there, I'm going to plug in my smoker and I'm going to add my sawdust. Now I prefer alder chips. Now there's all sorts of different flavors. There's apple, alder, mesquite, cherry, you name it, there's all sorts of different flavors. And that's the fun part of smoking is, I'm going to use alder because I know that that's consistently good. So I'm going to fill my pan heaping full, put it in the smoker, put my lid on and start my smoking process. Now the next question everybody's going to ask is, how long is that going to take? It depends on the temperature it is outside. Like today it's going to be about 95 degrees. I could probably have this done in 6 to 8 hours. If it was in the winter time and it was 45 degrees and it was wet out, it'd probably take me 8 to 16 hours. There are times when I've smoked fish as long as 20, 22 hours. It's not insulated. Now that always brings to mind, a lot of people want to set this in a box. That's been done before, but just remember, it gets hot in the bottom. If you got any paper on the bottom, it'll catch on fire. I suggest you do it this way right here. Now in smoking, you can use, it'll only take on so much smoke flavor. I use 2 to 3 pans of these chips. It'll take 45 minutes to burn that chips out of it. After the third pan, I won't put any more sawdust in, I just use the heat. All the chips do is flavor. So after the second or third pan, whatever you like, you don't need any more chips. One other thing I like to caution people on is when you take your pan out and you just have the ashes, don't just throw them on the ground next to the deck or throw them over in the bushes, put them in a metal bucket. There's been lots of fires started from that also. So be careful with that. So get your smokers going. It'll take that about 15 minutes and it'll start smoking real good. 45 minutes per pan. Change the 3 pans. I check my fish all the time, and from doing it I can tell by just feeling it whether it's done or not. If you have any questions, take a piece, cut it open. If it's pink all the way through, it's done. If it's opaque like this, translucent, it's not done. So, but don't overdo it. When you blow dry it like we just did with the fan, you almost can't overcook it as long as you have a Big Chief smoker with 165 degrees. If you had more temperature, you could. But these things are pretty forgiving. It's going to take you anywhere from 6 to 12 hours. But check it from time to time. The only way to do fish. All right, now we've had about 40-45 minutes. Now remember, I'm going to tell you a metal bucket, not a plastic bucket. I put a little bit of water in the bottom of mine. I take it out, take the ashes, drop it into there. Then I'm going to fill up my tray again. Now I'm going to do 3 of these pans of chips. And that's all it'll take, 3 heaping pans. Make sure you put it in a metal bucket. Here we go back again, let's keep the smoking up. Alright, now we've had it in our smoker here for about 6.5 hours. Now remember, today it's 93 degrees, so it takes less time. If this was a normal day of 70 degrees, it'd take about 8.5 hours. Alright, we'll lift it out. Boy, it looks beautiful. The question I get asked the most is, how do you know if it's done? I can tell by just pressing on it. It feels firm. But if you really wanted to guess, you can take a piece, the biggest, thickest piece, like right here, and grab one of these bones. When you pull it out and it just comes out clean, it's like checking a cake with a toothpick. It just pulls right out. Well, you'll know it's done all the way through when you can do that. So, and if you really get curious, you can take a piece out and cut it in half. And it's big all the way through, you'll know it's done. All right, now if you can look at this, it's beautiful, except for it looks sort of dry here. These are the bellies, and they always look oily. I don't like that look, so I'm going to put a finish on the outside. I'm going to take some honey. I'm going to warm it up so it's nice and pliable, and I'm going to brush a little bit of honey on these pieces, and that will give you that honey coating on the outside, plus it won't look dry. And if you like to really jazz it up, you can put a little cracked pepper on that. My kids like the cracked pepper on it. So you brush it, each piece, with a little bit of honey. I always put a catch board. I got paper underneath here so it doesn't drip out on my table. And that quick, you can put the honey on. And these pieces here I'm going to take a little bit of cracked pepper and just put it on top of it. Now the honey is going to stick to the fish, and then the cracked pepper will stick to the honey, and it'll stay on there. Otherwise, your cracked pepper just fall off of the dried fish. So if you want to have a cracked peppered one, you can also put onion salt, garlic salt. I have a buddy of mine who loves garlic salt on his. Just be careful that you don't put too much on there because it'll get too salty. So I'm going to put this back in the smoker for about 20 minutes, just so that that'll all glaze over. All right, now we got the honey on there, and I put cracked pepper on some of it. I'm going to put it back in the smoker. Some of these pieces are actually done, but I want to put them in there for about 20 minutes, and then I'm going to take them out. And then there's two rows here that aren't quite done yet. I'm going to put another hour on that. So right there again, having this rack, this top loader, is fine for me, but it's a little bit tough on women and guys who don't have the strength. Now the next question someone's going to ask is, after that's done, how long is it going to last? Well, what I always tell everybody, if you used 4 cups of brown sugar, 1 cup of salt, you mix it all up good, put it on top of your fish, you left it in there 14 to 16 hours, you tuck it out, squeegee it off, put it on your racks, put the fan on it, blow it till it was dry, put it in the smoker, use 2 to 3 pans of sawdust, smoke it till it's done, take it out. It won't last long because you're going to eat it. It's that good. So, but if you vacuum pack it, put it in the freezer, it'll last until you lose the seal on the back, 2 years, 3 years, as long as it keeps the seal on. If you just put it in your refrigerator, not vacuum packed, it'll last about 2 to 3 weeks. It'll get a little mold on it otherwise, but I guarantee you, you'll eat it. And the best time to eat it is as soon as I take that out of the smoker when it's still warm. It's absolutely the finest thing. Now remember, I'm just showing you the basics. The brown sugar, salt, and then the rock salt, brown sugar, and water. Those 2 are the simplest ones. There's lots of things you can play with, but learn the simple ones first, and then you can expand on them to something else. So that's smoking fish. Pretty easy.